Hello everyone, and welcome to This Nintendo Life episode 130. It is a number that if you took off the 0 it'd be 13. That's unlucky for some, not for me, because I was born on 13th, on a Friday, as everyone should know, and therefore I'm immune to any kind of bad luck.
You've made it this far.
I've made it this far. We're at episode 130. Nothing's gone wrong. And we have continued to do this show. It continues to exist, which is very, very good. And I'm also joined by someone who has also survived all doing these shows for however long. It is Bally. How are you doing, Bally?
I'm very good. It's been quite a while. It'll be a landmark episode next episode, so maybe we can mention that then.
Sure, absolutely. But yeah, we've been doing some things and stuff. You've been busy, Bally. Things been happening.
Yeah, I've been pretty busy. And it's not great being really busy when one of the longest games ever in Red Dead 2 has just come out. So that's been difficult. But I'm looking forward to that holiday season where you get a bit of time off work and it's just a good time where it's cold outside and you can just be horizontal and listen to Game of the Year podcasts and play some games. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Oh, I'm very, very excited about that. So all I want to do is lie down and have Giant Bomb inside my ears and just do nothing else.
Too good.
So yes, as we yearn for those times, they are coming, and we're obviously going to be a part of doing some of that stuff. We're going to do some Game of the Year podcasts and things of that like, and we'll probably talk a bit more about it when we get a bit closer to the time, maybe next episode. But yeah, some fun things to talk about. Lots of great games have come out this year, and we're going to talk about some more of them. So Bally, let people know what it is we're going to be talking about on the show today.
First segment, we're going to be talking about what we have been playing. Second segment will be an email segment. And third segment, there was a Smash Brothers Ultimate Direct. The Ultimate Direct, the final Direct before Smash Ultimate comes out.
Exactly, using the word in its correct usage.
Exactly.
I always liked when I learned the word penultimate and not realizing that ultimate would be the one that followed it. It's like the penultimate is the one before the last. That means the ultimate is the last, but didn't realize that until way later. So there you go. There's the Englishness for you.
So yeah, a lot of stuff happened with that Direct that we need to give our hot takes on.
Oh yeah, debrief and de-steam after it. So yeah, it was weird because we talked about all the rumors last time, and then all of a sudden it was like,
bam.
Oh, by the way, now here's a Direct. So a lot of Smash Brothers chat, but I guess that's, we're very close to release that game, so it's inevitable that it's going to happen on a Nintendo podcast of all things.
Indeed.
So yeah. So let's kick things off then, Mally. What are the video games you've been diving into?
Well, talking of Game of the Year, and a game that you have been very hot on, just last episode, that game is Into the Breach. I was like, I need to play this game. I like Advance Wars, I like Fire Emblem, I should be playing this turn-based strategy game.
Yes.
And I wanted to squeeze it in before Game of the Year so we could have a good discussion. It's always nice playing games in the year they come out for that very reason. And I'm absolutely loving it so far. It is pretty tough. I've not beaten it on normal yet. I'm keen to beat it on normal, having done a 4-island run. So you have a number of islands you can choose to defeat or not defeat, and minimum of 2 before facing sort of like a final island.
Yeah, it kind of gives you options, and every different kind of mech party that you have little medals and rewards. So
yeah,
it feels like the game, as a roguelike, obviously it is built to be replayed again and again, but it feels like it's really built that idea into all of its systems, because by doing multiple runs you will gain currency that you can then use to unlock a bunch of different mechs, and with each set of mechs you can do a 2-island victory, a 3-island victory, or a 4-island victory, and each of those gets kind of harder as it goes, because the longer you play the game, obviously the more resources you have to keep track of, and not make sure your power grid goes down, and make sure all your mechs are surviving, not let any pilots die. There's a lot to keep track of, so doing 4 islands and then finishing the game is a lot tougher than doing 2, and so they reward you for doing that with little achievements and things that will tick off on each different party. So the fact that you can do that, and I think there's 8 different mech groups total,
there's
all
8,
of them,
I think, and I've only got 2 so far.
It feels like if you wanted to do everything, it would take you a pretty damn long time to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'll have the energy to unlock all 8 sets, but maybe if I just rush through it on the easy a few times, I might unlock at least most of them. What's just so impressive is it feels so distinct from anything like Advance Wars or Fire Emblem. Obviously, there's elements that are similar, but there's such a huge emphasis on positioning and pushing your enemies into holes and into water, and just pushing them away from attacking buildings. And I guess that idea of attacking buildings, and in the Advance Wars, it's more to do with obviously capturing buildings rather than attacking buildings. So in that sense, it's maybe feels slightly more like Advance Wars, but at the same time,
because I think Fire Emblem, a lot of the objectives are like kill all the enemies, whereas in this game, because you don't have an army, like you don't have a huge group of units, you're only commanding 3, and so the brilliant thing about it is it really reduces the number of options you have, so you have to make the tough choices. You have to decide which thing is going to be sacrificed and what would be most beneficial to that given situation. Like, can you afford to take a power grid hit if you're on an island where one of the bonuses is that you get a power grid back from it? So, like, you know that if you are able to take that hit, you're going to get it back for doing something else, some other objective. So it is definitely balancing those.
The cost of regaining power for like your power grid is like you either have to complete an entire map defending a power source and then you gain 1 power grid energy back, or you have to spend at the end of that island like an entire I guess it's like a victory point or something on that one thing just to heal up your energy again. So like it's the second, and that's just from taking 1 hit on 1 building, and there are some buildings that represent 2 levels of energy that can be hit by a powerful enemy, and you can take 2 hits in a single hit in a single turn. And
then there's also the ability for, depending on your pilot stuff and things like that, for your grid defense to increase, so it can go up to 25%,
max of 25. So you got a 1 in 4 of when that building gets hit of that building resisting that damage.
And that's happened in some clutch moments for me where I'm like, oh god, I survived because that building just defended itself.
The hacks is here and
and I think it has to have that somewhat element of luck to it to make that excitement.
It's maybe the only random element in the whole game, arguably.
Exactly.
I can't think of another one, to be honest.
No, because the entire game is based around this chess-like idea of them. Well, it's not chess-like because you don't know what your opponent's going to do, but it feels very chess-like in it's set up because of the 8x8 grid. But the idea that they show you what your move is going to, or what their move is going to be every turn, means that you have to like get around that. You know exactly what's going to happen. You just need to execute on, stopping it or minimizing as much damage as possible.
Yeah, and like it is weird that the enemies move and then you move and attack, and then the enemies attack, which feels very different.
Right. It's a strange sandwich thing almost, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's weird. They have half their turn, then you have your full turn, then they have the other half of their turn.
Right.
But I don't know that the game would work without it, because it is built around that entire system. Like, that is the point of the game. So
exactly. And in that sort of energy defense thing we were talking about before, which is your essential life bar before you get a game over, while as much as that's difficult to defend, what I also find really difficult and slow and really tough is just upgrading your units between maps. So between islands, the enemies will progressively get tougher. They'll start dealing more damage, they take more hits. I don't think they spawn more between islands, but I think the amount they spawn is based on whether you're on easy or normal. I think that they just get harder.
But it's like the difficulty of the enemies.
Right, the difficulty of the enemies. And so you're needing to upgrade your units to do more damage and to move further and to become more powerful, gain different weapons. And you always feel, even if you absolutely ace a whole island where you get loads of victory points you can then spend to upgrade your units, even if you absolutely nail it, you never feel like you have enough money to upgrade them. And this is far more so with normal, because easy, you feel like you're matching them and outdoing them often, especially by the final island I found so far. But on normal, it's just like this absolute painstaking grind to even get a unit to do 1 extra damage, and at the same time that the enemy unit has just doubled its hit points or something, and you're just like, god, it just really is quick to unravel, because the second that you're ending up spending your victory points on healing up your energy instead of upgrading your units, you know that when you go to the next island you're going to get your ass kicked, because your units just aren't powerful enough, because you've spent all your money on essentially your shield, your HP, when really you need to be spending it on your units.
And that's the tough thing, right, is because a lot of those weapons that you buy, you can't just instantly use them. You have to have enough kind of upgrade points, as it were, on your mech to like slot them in. So every mech has a certain amount of points that they're given when they start, and that is what you use for your weapons and for your health and things like that. And so every map you get the opportunity, sometimes there might be a pod that falls down, and in those pods you can you can get like upgrade tokens, which will help you get another notch that you can use to kind of slot in on your mech. So there are things like you get a flamethrower, but in order to use the flamethrower, you need to have like 3 upgrade points. And to get 3 upgrade points, either you have to get really lucky with getting loads of pods, or you have to spend all of your victory points on upgrade like capsules, and those upgrade capsules cost 3 stars versus a lot of the other weapons and power grid stuff, which costs a lot less. So and say for example, like one island you get a total of 9 stars for victory points, you are kind of maxing out at 3 upgrade points, which you're spending like 1 on each mech maybe, or maybe you're doubling down on one mech and doing them all into that one, but then your other mechs feel underpowered. So it is a very tricky balance, and normal is definitely a lot harsher with that, because it feels like your units never progress that much throughout the campaign. And so you're using a lot of basic abilities that you were using early on still, even in the harder later parts of the campaign.
It's tough. It's really tough, but at the same time it's very addictive. It's very well designed. It never feels too unfair. Arguably it's tough, but it feels fair, and
it feels like there is a solution to each turn, It feels like there is a right answer, and there have been moments where I've sat there for 15 minutes and I have nailed it, and then I've like had this turn that is so fucking perfect because I sat there and thought through every possible option that I could make.
Right. And having the ability, you can undo your entire turn once per level, which is very useful.
Yeah, which is a really good thing to put in there, because if you let people do that all the time, it just wouldn't be as interesting. Like, it is a resource.
It feels well balanced, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, that might have been something they put in at the very last minute, because they were like, guys, our game is too tough. We need to turn it down somehow. But
maybe
I don't know.
To some degree.
But it works. And
I mean, this team made FTL, which is notoriously difficult and is a similar kind of roguelike idea. And I've heard horror stories about how bad the ending of FTL is to even finish that game. So I think they went for a better balance here overall. But it is one of those weird things where playing through easy, it kind of bores me. Honestly, like it is a bit too mindless for someone like me who like really enjoys the depth of the strategy, and it makes it, because you're getting all the upgrades and it is very low spawn rates, that you can pretty much do a lot of maps perfectly. And I had like a couple of islands where I got perfects and got every single objective, and it wasn't very...
And then the 3rd and 4th island by that point is very easy because your units are so powerful.
Exactly, and it just wasn't very engaging. So playing on normal is definitely recommended, but the problem is, as we've talked about, is like you don't get much upgrades, and then afterwards, because you haven't done as well, you're not gaining as many achievements, and therefore you're not getting as many coins, which means you're not unlocking new sets of mechs to play with. So it's this weird balance of like, I kind of feel like I have to go through on easy to unlock some new mechs, but I much prefer playing the game on normal because it's so much more interesting and engaging and challenging. So I don't even want to know what hard is like. I'll probably do a hard run at some point just to see. But going from normal, I can't imagine like beating the game on hard. It feels like it's maybe a bridge too far for me.
But it's a great game. I'm really glad I've decided to give it a go before the end of the year, and I'm going to keep on going. And I didn't quite beat Bad North, but I'm determined to beat this game on normal.
On normal, at least, yeah.
Having at least beaten 4 islands.
I mean, you can do that. I managed to beat it on normal. So
and you beat it after 4 islands? Or 2?
Yeah, well, no, I did, for normal, I did a 2-island victory. Okay. I've done a 2-island and a 3-island victory for easy. Not done a 4-island one yet. So
okay.
But yeah.
Cool. Yes, I'm looking forward to playing more of that. I've also been playing more Red Dead 2. I'm not massively far, maybe 6 to 8 hours in, which I believe is still in Chapter 2, that sort of the Valentine Town area. Really enjoying it. It's very confusing. It's very overwhelming. I'm trying to just kind of forget about how overwhelming everything is and just keep on doing side missions, keep on doing main missions. And the game is gradually telling me this is how you do X, this is how you do Y. It's just it's quite a slow process, and I'm not feeling like I'm addicted to playing overly long play sessions like I have done with maybe some other longer games this year, and I'm sure it'll get into its stride. I've just not gotten into it yet, and partly because I've been playing quite a bit of Into the Breach, so I need that time and space to just really go for it with Red Dead. But like, one funny thing that happened to me was, it's like a mission where I think it's just teaching you how to basically catch someone and hog tie them and then put them on your horse.
Yeah.
And I chased the dude, I hog tied him like it told me to, put him on my horse, and then you're meant to go to a place, and at that point you're meant to just look for like this treasure or bounty, or like, it's like treasure hidden in a tree essentially. And the game wasn't really clear about what you were meant to do with the hogtied dude on your horse. So I took him off my horse and untied him just to see what he would do, whether he'd be like, yeah, the treasure's here, we need to go here, or what would happen. And he just started running away from me. So I'm like, well, I guess I need this guy. I'm going to chase him again. And I'm just running along, chasing him. I kind of throw my lasso a couple of times. Or I think, can you lasso while running? I think I was just going to tackle him. But then as we're running along, he basically trips and falls and then knocks his head on like a rock and dies. And I'm just left there like, crap, do I need this guy? This is like I think it's one of the story missions. Like, what am I meant to do here? And then I was like, crap, I hope someone doesn't see me. Like, I need to hide this guy. So I like dragging this body like to some underneath a rock basically. And I got back, found the treasure and moved on with my life. But it was just weird, and like I am liking that about this game, and that I am enjoying just going up to people and seeing how they react. Where there were just a couple of people having a campfire, and I walk up and they're like, "Excuse me, sir, you're gonna need to go away." And I'm like, I'm gonna play this out and be as good guy and friendly as possible. But what I'm not gonna do is just leg it because they're telling me to. So I just stood my ground. And then obviously they started pulling their guns on me, and then I pulled my gun on them, and then we had a shootout. I won. They were both dead, and then I basically hid the two bodies around the back of their campsite and used their campsite for like that night. And then in the morning got up and went away. And then in the morning there was like this thing saying witness or something. So I think someone heard gunshots and he reported us.
Right.
But I don't think it ever led to anything because they never saw me, and I made sure that the people who saw me shooting were killed. So that kind of, these knock-on effects it's kind of cool, and like I'm excited to see where more of that goes. But it's fun, but I need to play more. I just haven't had as much of that stuff, and maybe it's because I am less prone to just wandering about, because to me it just feels like there isn't much to wander about and do. But maybe it's just more of a case of me trying some things and trying to do some weird stuff with interacting with people. I feel like I never click antagonize on people. Oh, I didn't either, and they still,
because I'm just worried that it's just going to mess things up and I'm going to have to run away and pay a bounty. But honestly, like, since doing a lot of other missions, you start earning a lot of cash, and I've basically almost completed the ledger at this point because of how much money I made. Like, there was one mission where we were robbing the bank, and I was able to take like 10 grand, and so my cut from that was like 1.5 grand. So I had loads of money, and I was just pumping it into the ledger and just making sure the whole camp was happy and sorted and everything, which was, it kind of has taken away my need to like go and rob people and find stuff and do side stuff, I guess, because the main story has liquidated me to the point where it's not.
Have you got the hang of Deadeye yet?
I don't know. I mean, it was in the first game, and I used it quite a bit in the first game, but I can't remember a huge amount about it. It is something I always forget about. And the other thing is, I'm someone who, like, with finite resources, I don't like using them. Like, when I play through
I know what you mean.
RPGs, you keep all your potions and you never end up using them. At the end of the game, you still have them all. So, like, I have all these resources to use to be like, oh, fill up your Deadeye. But I'm like, oh, but I could use that at a really useful opportunity when I really have to use it, instead of using it in the middle of combat. So, and because Deadeye is not something that naturally comes back, I don't think, unlike your health and your stamina.
And you can't just play it as, rather than just be some insanely awesome cowboy who shoots 5 guys in a row, you can just play it more as a cover shooter and I guess do it that way, which I guess is what I've been doing so far. Not that I've engaged in a ton of shootouts yet, but I know that that's going to come later.
Yeah, and you can, I guess, use it just for one shot at a time, and then undo it, and then reload it again, and keep going like that. But yeah, the thing that annoys me is there's been a lot of horse riding sequences where I have to shoot at the same time.
Oh, it feels awful. It feels so bad.
And it doesn't work at all. It's just not built for it.
The only way it works is if you're behind them, chasing them, and you're shooting your gun in front of you. Anything else,
because you can see where you're going.
Exactly. Because you
have to rotate the camera behind you while still tapping the X button because they thought that was a good idea. Actually, one of the tooltips that came up that I paid attention to was really useful. If you tap X in time with the pace of your horse, you don't actually lose stamina, which has been a revelation. Like it has made my horse riding more engaging because it's something that I'm actually trying to do.
So it's like a few quick taps to get your horse up to speed, and then once they're at speed, it's just a rhythmical, rhythmic, I should say, like tapping. Yeah. No, I only just learned that as well.
Yeah, it's almost like a mini game that really it makes it so that the riding is less about like holding down a button or just randomly tapping a button, and there's actually a purpose to it, which has exacerbated some of my woes about that system. But yeah, I don't know. I've mainly, as I've said before, just been following the main thread, the main plot, and it's been good. And I like the area I'm in right now. It's a town where it's basically owned by this one family, and there's this other family they're both like really big, rich, powerful families. And there's this one quest that is almost this Romeo and Juliet thing where there's this, one boy from the Grey family, and he's in love with the Braithwaite girl, so you have to go and deliver a letter, and you have to like stealth through the Braithwaite estate, like swim to this island that she's at and give her the letter and things like that. And it's been interesting because the gang like plays both families off each other and like robs both families, and I like the chapter set up in that way because it has framed like I'm in this area and this is the central conflict of this area. It's like this family owns everything, and a lot of the quests are going to intersect with those different characters, and they're going to come back and you're going to get to know them a bit more. So I've liked that about it, definitely. But yeah, it's just very long and, as we've already said, just slow. So it's not something that you can easily pick up and play.
No,
it's more like you have to sink into it and just let it wash over you. So again, it's not really an evening game for me because it doesn't. No, really, and I've been
struggling to fit it in for that reason as well. It's just very hard to get doing some useful things and say I've accomplished X in my play session.
I mean, I have actually been doing like a couple of missions, but it's more because like I just want to get through the story than anything else, and I know that otherwise it's going to take me literally forever to even finish it. So. So yeah, that's Red Dead. Anything else to say on it before?
I'm sure I'll have plenty more to say in upcoming episodes as I delve deeper. But yeah, it's not the most addictive, hottest game ever.
It's not a fun game to play. But it is impressive in a lot of ways, and it does some interesting things. So it's a thing that people will be talking about. So. Yes, so I then have, when I went home, basically, I decided I wasn't going to take my PS4 because it would be a pain to pack and everything and take on a plane. So I had my Switch, and I've been meaning to play the DLC for Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which is called Torna, the Golden Country. And it is essentially a expansion that is also a standalone game. So it's similar to, I guess... I feel like Uncharted The Lost Legacy started because they were like, it's going to be DLC for Uncharted 4, but then it got so big that it morphed into its own thing, and it was like a standalone release. So it feels like a similar thing has happened here, where it's like, there's the season pass for Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and that has a bunch of bullshit, like, here are some more side quests, and here are some, like, quality of life things that we fixed, and here are some new blades that you can do with your party. Whereas Torna the Golden Country is... It feels more like a game unto itself than an expansion, although in some ways not wholly, because it is a lot smaller in scope. For example, there are only 2 titans that exist that you can go to. So one of them is Gormott, which is the opening titan of the original Xenoblade 2, and the other one is Torna, which it is named after, which is one of the titans that basically is non-existent in Xenoblade 2 because it was destroyed and things had happened in the past. And I would say that if you haven't played the original game, I wouldn't recommend playing this, even though it is a much tighter experience, and probably is more appealing to a lot of people for that reason. Just because the narrative stuff and the story stuff is probably not going to make a lot of sense to you. It very much is linked into this idea, and I've talked about this before, but I really like in stories where it's like 500 years ago this thing happened and now it links to this thing, and it's why I love the Phoenix Wright games. It's why the original Xenoblade is really cool. There's a lot of games that have those ideas of stuff that has happened before, and this is giving you the peek behind the curtain. It's like, okay, what if we did the game where it is set 500 years ago? And that's exactly what Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is. So it follows Jin, who's one of the Blades from the original game, and his original driver Laura, and they are kind of the core central characters. It's really their story, but you meet up with Adam, who is kind of this fabled myth of legend, and in the original Xenoblade 2 they make him so mysterious, and like they have a hood on him. You never see his face, it's just like never revealed. He's kind of this I think it's a very interesting commentary almost on how we view legends and myths and people, and this happened with Game of Thrones as well, I think, because in Game of Thrones, they're constantly talking about like all these heroes of the past and how amazing and legendary they were. And then they do these flashback sequences, like when they're at the tower and there's that one guy, I can't remember, is it like Sir Arthur Dane or something? And he's just like a regular dude. Like, he's a pretty good fighter, but there's nothing, like, you kind of lose the mythos around it when you actually see the person. And so Adam is really just like a goofy idiot, and it isn't really that mythical figure that was shown in the original Xenoblade 2. So I thought it was quite a funny comparison and jarring in some senses. But so he's on your team, and then you also have I can't remember now. Yeah, there's someone else who joins you. It's the guy from Mor Dane. Mor Dane is the Scottish Titan, which is the Empire, and I think we talked about that before. About it's weird that the Scottish being Imperials and everything in the original. And he looks literally exactly the same as the Emperor in Xenoblade 2. So it's one of those things where it's like the character is just the same. It's like Link and Zelda, they always look the goddamn same, even though they're different people over the years. It's just the same character model and everything, which I found quite funny. So those are your core party members, and the way it works this time, as opposed to you having the gacha system of, we have all these crystals and you have to open them up like loot boxes to see what blades you get inside, and even if you have like a legendary core, there could be a chance you just get a regular old blade out of it and you don't get anything good, and it's a bunch of shit. This time, because it is more focused on just these characters, you don't have to do that. So every character is basically playable, and you can switch this time between the blades and between your kind of human, I guess, characters, the main characters. And it changes up some of the systems. So previously, in order to get health, you would have to do certain arts that would give you health, or there would be one that would spawn health potions. Now, when you switch between characters, it gives you a bit of a bump to your health. So it's encouraging you to switch up quite a lot and make sure that you are valuing all the members and making sure that you are able to chain things together. So like break and topple will often be tied to when a character enters the battle. So one of the arts that Laura has would break them, and then when you switch to Jin, he automatically topples with the attack that he comes in with. So there's like a jump in attack when you switch characters, and that creates the moments where you're like, okay, and then I'm going to launch them, and then I'm going to smash them down to the ground. So it's building up a lot of the combos and things that were in the original game, but streamlining it somewhat now because you don't have as much to worry about. Like, you only have a couple of characters that you can switch between, so it makes it a much more easy proposition to get into, even though the combat in Xenoblade 2 is quite overwhelming at first, and it takes a lot of understanding, but once you know what to do, it is so much fun, and I really enjoy it because it has, like I was talking about with Red Dead, with that rhythmical thing with the horse, every time that you use an art, if you use it right after you have done a auto attack, a blue circle pops up, and it's basically like, they call it a cancel, but it basically means that art does more damage, and it also fills up your special meter. And so it's a similar system of using specials. This time, though, in order to get the orb on them. So previously what would happen is you get these different coloured orbs, which were based around the elements, so like wind and fire and rock and whatever. They would only attach an orb to an enemy after you had gone through a full cycle of specials. So you'd have to do one special from one team member, the second level from another, and the third level from another. Then you would have an orb. This time, the orbs happen after every individual special. So if you do 3 specials, you now have 3 orbs. So it makes it, when you get to the chain attack, so much easier to deal out that high amount of damage, because when you're bursting those orbs, it gives you the ability to get another turn, and eventually you'll get a full burst, which means you're just like smashing them to pieces. And it is one of those layered systems that, as I'm explaining it, I realize how fucking complicated it is. But once you understand it, it feels sublime to play, and I really love it. And I think they just have done a great job of streamlining it and making it a much smoother experience for people to go through. But just the feelings that Xenoblade gives me are all there. It is the continent of Torna is split into 4 sections, so it does have some variety in the locales. There's like a large desert section. There's a huge sprawling town. There's a really nice grassy landmass. Like it does have a good variety in its locales. That obviously it's not going to live up to the previous game, just because they had much wider scope, like the church-like whiteness of Indoline and its like choral music that I loved so much, and that stuff is not going to be here. There's not as much variety, but there's something to me about the Xenoblade games of just wandering and getting lost in them, and just now, because I like the combat so much, just fighting enemies and leveling up, and even it comes down to just like the little sound effects that happen when you find something in the field, and it's like, oh, here's an insect area where you can just collect a bunch of insects, and you like lean down, you open it up, and they all pop out, and every time you collect them, there's just a really nice jingle to it, and you always feel like you're getting stuff that's going to be useful to you. There's a great sense of progression, and even though it feels like you're just wandering around this huge expanse, in comparison to Red Dead, where it feels like you're doing nothing, it feels like you're constantly achieving and doing something in Xenoblade, whether it be discovering locations or just seeing something that is awe-inspiring, or leveling up through your battles, or using some of your field abilities, which is, again, another thing that has been made much easier this time, because obviously in the previous game, the field abilities were tied to whatever blade you had, and if you didn't have the right blade with the right ability, then Jesus, it was a nightmare to just like juggle them around. But because everything is fixed in this game, it's very clear what you need to do in order to get to the next level. And so, you know, in the affinity chart, it will say to up Mithra's focus to whatever, you need to do this. You need to put this type of food in her pouch. And it can get a little convoluted, I will say, because there were moments where I wanted to get somewhere, and it's like, okay, you need level 2 focus. In order to get level 2 focus, you need to have this specific type of food that Mithra likes and put it in her pouch. So I'm like, okay, how do I make that food? Okay, I need these ingredients. Where the fuck are those ingredients? I need to go out, find those ingredients, which are random drops. Then I need to go to my camp, cook them in the camp, make them, put them into her pouch, and then she gets the skill unlocked. Like, it feels like you're working backwards quite a bit to do some of those tasks, which is, I guess, a minor complaint, and I think it is more to do with some of the nonsense that the original game was bogged down in and was a little bit fiddly. But overall, because it has reined in the gacha system and it's reined in the field skills, it's taken a lot of those parts that were very, very stodgy and lightened them and made them much more engaging, and it felt like I wanted to really do a lot of the side quests and stuff. And the one problem I have is that it is very side quest focused. The main story is not super long, and I probably could have finished the main story in under 10 hours had I been able to. But what the game does is there's this community system, and every NPC you come across gets added to it. NPCs who have quests, once you do them, they get put into this giant circle thing. So you remember like the affinity charts from the original Xenoblade and stuff like that, which were these massive like webs that made no sense, and there's all these lines connecting them.
I think I beat the game without even fully understanding what that was all about.
No, yeah, I never really focused on it too much. But this one is a lot more simple because it's just this big circle, and every time you beat a quest, a person goes into it. And you need to raise the level by getting more people into that circle, and it feels like you need to get a lot of people, but some quests will give you multiple. So you could do a quest where you get 3 people, even though it was just one quest, because those 3 characters were important to that storyline. And so what it does near the end of the game is it's like, well, Malos is gonna destroy the world. But he's not ready to do it yet, so let's do some side quests, and it basically forces you to get your community up to level 4, which is quite a lot considering that I thought I'd been doing loads of side quests, and I had my community up to level 2, and I was like, okay, I feel like I've been doing loads, and I've really been digging in, and then it's like, nope, level 4, and I'm like, geez, I need 32 more people, because it's 16 people to raise it at one level, and so you think, like, if every side quest only gives me one person, that's like a maximum of 32 side quests, probably minimum of like 20. So I just went around doing them, which I was fine with. Actually, it only took me like 3 or 4 hours, and it was, I was off and I had holiday time, so I didn't feel like I was, wasting hours that I had doing this grinding, because it was enjoyable. I was really enjoying Xenoblade, but I would say it could have been lightened down even more. As it was, it probably took me about 16 hours to finish total, but really enjoyed it. Think that it's a great add-on. If you enjoyed the original Xenoblade 2 and had some reservations about certain things that I've mentioned, it definitely addresses a lot of those problems. Storytelling is still not quite up there with the original as far as I'm concerned. They haven't really topped it. And yeah, I don't know. It's good to just play more in this world. And obviously, the music is a huge part of why I like to just sink into these games, because while you're exploring those vast landscapes, just having this incredible orchestral soundtrack in the background is phenomenal. So yeah, really, really loved it, and would recommend it to people. So there you go. All right. Well, that is pretty much going to close us out for this segment. We are going to be back after the break, though. We're going to talk about some of your emails. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Welcome back to part 2 of today's show. It is time for your emails. We've had quite a few in, but not really, because most of them are on Discord, so we would like actual emails in as well, but if you would rather post in Discord, we want them all. So yeah, head on over to our Discord server, which is in the description, also on our Twitter account, or send us an email to ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. That is ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. We would much appreciate your comments, your questions. We read them all. We would love that. So our first email this week is from Damon C from the US of A. What are your guys' guilty pleasure games? The ones you always fall back on no matter how much you have already played it. For me, it is The Binding of Isaac. I've sunk 970 hours into the Switch version and see no end in sight. The game is full of so much randomness and insane synergies that it keeps me coming back for more. Add in the constant ability to unlock items and achievements after nearly every victory, and you have a winner in my eyes. Keep it up, guys.
Okay, so I feel like we do less of this these days just because of the nature of we just move on from games a lot, but definitely a lot of games over the years that we have just sunk into, and there's still games that I do this with that I will play and go back to as comfort and as something that is easy and relaxing. What is one for you, Bally, that sticks out?
Well, like you, there was a lot of games traditionally that before we were on a podcasting, I was just playing whatever I fancied more often. There were a lot more, but currently, I guess my go-to game is a bit of multiplayer Rocket League. with Caroline.
Yeah, you put like 90 hours into Rocket League.
At least now. But the phrase, and because we play it local, the whole Nintendo Switch Online stuff hasn't changed the way that we play that game, because we just play with a couple of expert bots each, basically. So, yeah, the phrase guilty implies that the game itself maybe isn't good in my mind. I don't know.
It's guilty pleasure is always one of those weird things, because it's like, oh, this is a thing that society deems bad or something like that.
Sure.
You know, which I wouldn't say that for Binding of Isaac. Like, it's a very critically acclaimed game.
But
I guess it's more like, what are your comfort games almost? You know.
Yeah, and as you said with the podcast, I do try and move on swiftly between games and talk about new games that I've played and things. So the time for guilty pleasures has been reduced significantly, but that's okay. But back in the day, there was a huge number of guilty pleasures for a number of reasons. Like, without the podcast, it was a lot more time and space to play longer hours into games that might not be so interesting to talk about. But B, like, my taste in games was just kind of horrible back then in comparison to what it is now. So I would sink so much time into like World Cup 98 on my N64, just playing whole World Cups with Scotland and with other countries, and play through an entire World Cup in like a morning or something. It'd take ages.
Just seasons, yeah.
Yeah, just seasons. And I'd play a ton
That's what I did with FIFA 2000, was I would just take Celtic and I would just put them through season after season after season.
Yeah.
And the AI was really bad in that game, so I would constantly be winning like 7-9-0 or like 10-0. And my goal was always to just get as high as possible and just get as many clean sheets as possible.
And then I'd play a ton of like Burnout 2 Point of Impact on the GameCube, which is a really good game, but I'd like go back to the same track and just keep playing that one track to like get a better time trial scores.
I mean, yeah, that was you all the time,
like
especially with Mario Kart, was just time trials galore, just time trial after time trial, non-stop.
Obsessed with time trials on Double Dash and Wii. That was like one of my flatmates at uni. We'd like have lectures at different times, and so whenever one of us wasn't doing lectures, we'd be trying to beat the ghost of like the other person, and then it's like, came back from a lecture and noticed that he'd knocked off a few seconds, and I'd have to like constantly keep beating it, and so that was like on
like
Luigi's,
having the internal
Luigi's
competition of it,
right?
Yeah.
Luigi's Circuit on Mario Kart Wii, that was good. And just our guilty pleasure growing up, I guess, was Mario Party.
Sure, yeah.
There was just a ton of that. So, as we've mentioned many a time on the show.
Yeah, it's funny because Mario Kart Wii is definitely one of those games that I know you went so deep into at a level that is almost unhealthy, I think. I don't know, it was like I remember just the ghosts that you would do, and they had some online challenges, didn't they, with Mario Kart Wii?
Yeah,
as well?
really cool ones where it'd be like, you've got a week to do this, and I was like the top in Europe for a time, or I was like this for a time, like because I did it straight away, and I got initially into like the top 20, and then I got gradually butted out.
Oh, okay. So you're just a bit of a keen bean about it.
Right. But there was a couple of them that I really thought I had a good chance of like getting into the top 10, so I'd really push like crazy to do it, and I was always just a few split seconds off outside, as I'm sure most people would end up being. But yeah, that was a really cool mode that I don't know, I guess never happened with 8 in the same way. Yeah,
not quite. I really wish that there was stronger single player stuff in Mario Kart 8. It really is the bare bones, and the online stuff was cool that they added all the stuff in terms of like the grouping and the matching, and like when we were live streaming some Mario Kart 8 a few years ago, it was very easy to get people together and do it, because all you needed to do was create one room with one code, and people didn't have to match friend codes with each other, which was a much better, more streamlined way of like getting a large group of people who don't have everyone necessarily added on. So for like a streaming situation, it worked pretty great. But there wasn't that level of, we have this constant, almost games as a service type thing that Mario Kart Wii was doing, where they had you just keep coming back to do those challenges every time, and they reminded me maybe to some degree of the mission mode in DS and things like that. But yeah, Mario Kart generally is one that I've spent a lot of time with, despite the fact I'm not as big of a fan of it as you are. But I've definitely put a lot of time into Mario Kart. And it's one of those games that I imagine if I did have on Switch, I would probably spend more time with just because it's there. And it's very easy to just do GPs.
Yeah, and we've both resisted it on Switch so far.
Right, because I don't know. What do you feel about Mario Kart 9? Do you feel like it's on the horizon, or is there any chance of it happening on Switch?
Maybe not horizon, but I am definitely positive there will be a Mario Kart or a smashification of Mario Kart on Switch at some point.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be anywhere near 2019 or even 2020. It'll probably be slightly at the back end of what could be, I guess, a very long life cycle. We'll see.
Yeah, well, obviously Mario Kart 8 still selling bananas, like it's past 10 million.
You'd be mad to do anything to that formula for now. So
right, it's just a weird situation they've got themselves into, because it's like, hey, there's this basically remaster that has sold 10 million copies and sold more than the original game. It's like,
God,
what the fuck, man? It's so messed up how badly the Wii U did that a remaster of a Wii U game can do so much better when the console is more appealing to
and like
people.
I'm sure Tropical Freeze is going to pass the Wii U one at some point.
I think it already has. I'm pretty sure it has done.
Yeah, Bayonetta and stuff like that, I'm sure.
Yeah,
it's all going to happen.
All those games just making it look like, and more the Wii U just gets stripped of its identity, and it's just, this footnote on history. But back to games that we find, I guess, guilty pleasures we put loads of time into. Guitar Hero is a huge one for me. All versions of Guitar Hero. I love the high score chase in that series, mainly because there's always room for improvement. I'm never good enough to usually get like perfect 100% all the time, and so I like playing on expert a lot. I like playing on hard for certain songs, and obviously it just introduced me to like a whole world of music with Guitar Hero 3, but there is something about the track list in Guitar Hero 3 that is so much fun to play, more so than any other game in the series. I never felt like the note highways were quite as good as the song selection in 3, and there was something about the complexity of those different songs and the way that you would do hammer-ons and pull-offs and your fingers would just like glide from side to side that was so comforting and familiar, and it's what made me want to play the goddamn guitar, for God's sake. So it's one of those games that I will always go back to, despite these days having it be a bit harder to play because of the lag stuff with the Wii and modern TVs and having to reset the timing and the delay in order to make it work well. And there was something else about Guitar Hero 3 in terms of when you hit the notes. I never thought the feedback ever was quite as good from the other games. Like in Rock Band, I never enjoyed it as much in terms of when you actually hit the notes and saw that they were hit. It was always just very high up that list. But I think I've put like probably 200 hours into Guitar Heroes all combined. And if I had it here right now and I was able to play it constantly, I probably would do a lot more, just as a because I don't listen to as much music these days, so it's kind of a good hit two birds with one stone affair, because you're like listening to a bunch of music but also being engaged and playing a game at the same time. So
it's not exactly a podcasting game.
No, of course not. Yeah. Like the whole point is
that'd be a
listen.
weird ass skill to be able to listen to
I
podcasts and
guess
play guitar.
You can do it. Like it's definitely possible, but it's not preferable.
No.
Like a lot of podcasts have like background music, so if you treat it in that sense,
sure,
it's the background music. But then you don't hear when you mess up and things like that. So
Damon, thank you for your email. Sorry to disappoint.
I've got some more.
You got more?
Yeah.
Let's go then.
Obviously, my current one is Overwatch, which I
of course
keep playing.
That's like my Rocket League is your Overwatch sort of.
Pretty much, yes. Yeah, we both have
do.
our multiplayer game of choice that we just go to when we want to do something that isn't something we have to commit to. There's a great thing about multiplayer games, and why I think they are so popular is because you don't have to commit. And there's no worry about like where am I going to save, when am I going to switch it off. It's like finish the game, done, switch it off. I've made some progress, like I've leveled up, and that's the kind of thing that I really enjoy about that style. And obviously I've talked to death how much I love Overwatch. That's one. And then just for single player games, Mega Man 2 and Metroid Fusion are the two games that I will always go back to if I just want to play something familiar. Mega Man 2, I think I've beaten like 9 times at this point. It's stupid. And Metroid Fusion, probably the same amount. It's just, I go back to those games because they're comforting and I know them inside out. And it's more of just the enjoyment of the mechanics and going through them and finishing them. So, yeah, I would say that those are probably my number ones.
Nice. So thanks for your email, Damon. I don't have a huge number of guilty pleasures currently, but I'm sure I should get back into a game that I love a bit like you in Fusion, I guess.
Yeah.
Our next question is from James, who's from Vancouver, Canada, and this question is from Discord. After hearing all of the mixed opinions on Red Dead Redemption 2, I'm interested to hear your guys' stance on realism in games. Do you think many of the AAA games these days are trying to be too realistic and losing too much of their fun aspects? Where is the line where too much realism becomes tedious? Bally, I know you're relatively inexperienced when it comes to gaming experiences like this, but I'd love to hear opinions as well as MBZ, who has definitely played more games that might be more applicable to this question. Keep it up.
Fantastic. Thank you, James, for that. I think the line between fun and tedious is right where Red Dead is right now. And I think that's why it's being discussed so much, because a lot of people are finding it incredibly tedious, where a lot of people are getting enjoyment out of the fact that it is so grounded. And I guess it depends on what you really want out of the experience. I think the people who are enjoying Red Dead the most are the people who are taking it at its face value and are going with it on what it wants to do, and they feel like they are embodying that character and playing it as if they were that character. And that's never been the way I play games. I never invest into being in that world in that type of way. It's
literal role playing kind of
right
thing.
Literal role playing, because I know a lot of people do that with certain games. Like they will try to make the choices as if they were that character, and it depends on the game. Like some games where it comes to choice, I will usually go with what I think will make the most interesting outcome, as opposed to what will be the thing the character would do. So I guess that's just where I come from in it.
I remember when we were younger, and Gran Turismo was always sold as it's the most realistic driving game yet. Like, it's like real life driving, and having played a handful of like driving games, I was like, oh my god, real drive, like this could be incredible. And like going to our friend Charlie's house, who I think had it on PS2, I want to say, and he was like,
I owned Gran Turismo 2 on PS1.
Right. Yes. I think I played both. I remember
because I had the driving wheel and the pedals and everything that went with it.
And then finally sitting down to play Gran Turismo and being like, this controls horribly. I can't do anything. This is the least fun I've had playing a video game in a long time, and everyone's losing their minds about this. And Red Dead feels similar in aspects of that, where
because it's like so he controls like a real human, but do you want your video game to control like a real human? Like, humans don't move around as fast as video game protagonists do. They don't run out of breath, or humans do run out of breath versus video game protagonists who sometimes don't. Like that's one of those things that I think people got bugged about in Breath of the Wild, which it's not too bothersome for me, but the stamina system and the way that was implemented into things like swimming and climbing, running,
and that's just like kind of a fake attempt at being semi-real kind of thing. It's just like a little counterbalance to playing a video game, I guess. And then but with Red Dead, what's so weird about it is going from the most recent, I guess, big AAA game before it this year, which I guess is Spider-Man, and that just has so much freedom, and you are a superhero, and you're
just frictionless in every
way.
It's
so free in both the web slinging and the fighting, and it's just feels great. And going from that to this ultra realistic, I'm cleaning my gun, I'm loading up my bullets, I'm getting shot at like anything, I'm dead. Because I couldn't fire my gun quick enough.
Exactly.
Versus web slinging just a guy in a split second who's about to fire a rocket launcher at you. Like it makes you reestablish why games are fun and why we enjoy them. And when you're breaking that relationship between making something too real versus actually having fun and fluid and free in a game. A game like Red Dead just takes you completely out of it and shocks you, really shocks you. And what's interesting about Red Dead, I find, is that it's selling and will sell. It's going to be one of the best selling games on PS4, absolutely. And the idea that there are lots and lots of casual gamers and gamers who might only pick up maybe FIFA or COD once a year, picking this game up, and they might not have had as many experiences with maybe, you know, your traditional third-person action games like a Spider-Man,
right.
Although obviously that sold very well as well. But
yeah,
I don't know,
Assassin's Creed,
like
which
Assassin's
is getting
Creed.
compared to quite a lot because Odyssey
Sure.
just came out.
Like Uncharted, like these games. I mean, obviously Assassin's Creed and Uncharted sold really well, but they might not sell as well as Red Dead. Like, it is reaching a crowd that these other games won't. But at the same time, it is so much more difficult to play and to feel free in that same sense. And
it's so
really
much more complex as well.
Yeah,
it's not an easy like traditional AAA game to just pick up and go into. It's crazy that the Rockstar made the decision to make this game as, you know, convoluted and difficult to play as it is, and yet, like, you know, GTA controls similar to this, and it's the best-selling fucking video game ever, almost. Like, it's almost past Minecraft. It's crazy. So, I think there are lots of different types of elements in games I've played that shoot for maybe a sense of realism that I am actually okay with, but I think to me it's more about overall how much are you invested in that world and how much do you care about it and how much do you want to, you know, sink into it. And with The Witcher 3, a lot of people complained about the idea that you had to sharpen your weapons or like repair your weapons before they broke if you use them too much, and they didn't like that. And obviously, you know, Breath of the Wild has a similar thing where weapons break. I've been one of those weird people where weapon degradation has never bothered me, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because I played so much Fire Emblem when I was younger, and it's just the expectation that weapons are going to break.
You've always kept a knife in your back pocket ready to go when your main sword breaks, and if you're not used to that, then it's very jarring, I guess.
Exactly, and this is the thing we were talking about before as well, as like I'm the person who hoards potions and doesn't use them. Like, right. I make sure all of my Fire Emblem characters have like bonus weapons on them just in case of something happening, and it always happens. I'm always prepared for it. So in scenarios like Witcher and Breath of the Wild, like, I have the backup options. I'm never going to be worried about having anything break on me because, you know, I know what I'm doing. And it was also, there was an aspect of The Witcher 3 where I did in that game, more so than others, sink into the idea of being a Witcher and of preparing before fights and looking up the entries of the monster and seeing what it is they're weak to, which signs are they weak to, should I drink a potion beforehand to boost a certain thing, should I make sure that my weapons are sharpened, that my gear is in high percentage like range, because your gear would degrade as well as your weapons, so you'd have to go there and like have someone just push it back up to normal. And I enjoyed the, I guess, role play of that to some degree, but it was also just because I loved the world that they had created, and I just wanted to spend so much time in it, so I was willing to forgive a lot of those systems that I think a lot of people didn't. And it's weird because I think a lot of people will talk about how The Witcher 3 controls like garbage, and it, you know, has similar problems to Red Dead in terms of, you know, having to do some micromanaging and things like that. But the story in the world is so much more engaging for me in The Witcher 3 than it is in, you know, a, you know, more real world setting like Red Dead is, that it overcomes that barrier to some degree. So maybe I'm just talking bullshit, and it's all about how much I actually want to exist in the place that they've created. But yeah, I think it definitely is one of those things that people will, I think over time people have become less forgiving because people have so much less time, and it's all about, games are much longer, and so if games waste your time, I think people feel a lot more frustrated with elements like that.
And it'll be interesting in these, we're in the middle of November now, Game of the Year is not far away. It'll be interesting to hear the number of discussions that essentially have this debate about a game like Red Dead, where I'm sure there'll be plenty of people siding with Red Dead for Game of the Year who don't mind those things that it's going for and think that, you know, the realism trumps the the realism and how impressive and immersive that game can be trumps all the other aspects of pure fun that maybe a game like Spider-Man and God of War might be better at, arguably. So I think this is going to be a debate that's going to rage online in the next couple of months, and I think that'll be really interesting to see, because while that debate's always been there, I do think a game like Red Dead 2 is really bringing it to the fore more so than perhaps it has in the past.
And I think we can reach a middle ground in terms of these things. And I think we already have, and we've talked about it before, but I think Breath of the Wild is that perfect middle ground of
definitely.
It gives you situations where you have to think realistically, like the idea that you chop down a tree and use it as a bridge to go over somewhere. In real life, that's not super practical. Like you can do that. It's physically possible to do so, and you can walk across it, and it may work. But it's not a guarantee, and it's not something that is 100% going to happen. Whereas in Breath of the Wild, you can do that, and it doesn't work 100% of the time, but it is one of those things that, like, logically it makes sense, and you can do it, and it does work. But it's also video gamey enough to where it's still fun and engaging to do, and it's not laborious. Like, you don't have to spend 2 hours chopping at it. Like, it is set up to make it a lot more of a fluid experience, and so that you don't have to worry about the real life elements. Like, if you're actually a person who cuts down trees, that's not going to be a 2-minute job with a couple of swings of your sword. So yeah, and I think that's a place that we should try to strive towards, where solutions to things are things that we would imagine doing in real life and would make sense logically, but have enough of a video game aspect and a fluidity to them that they just work.
Just like a counterbalance of realism, which I think Breath of the Wild nails with something like that. Tree chopping, something like the climbing mountains. Like, there's a number of areas, weapon degradation, where it's just saying, you know what, we're trying to recreate a bit of a realism to this world. You can't just be a superhero kind of thing. And that feels good with that game.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, thanks for your question, James. I'm sure that debate will rage on. And that is all we've got time for this segment. So as I said at the start of the segment, please send more emails to ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com. That is ThisNintendoLife@gmail.com, or post a question in our Discord server, link in the description. Also link to that Discord server on our Twitter account @TNL Podcast. But join us after the break, where we will give you our hot takes on that Smash Ultimate Direct that just happened. Be right back.
Alright everyone, welcome back to the third and final part of the show today, and we are going to be talking a bit more about everyone's favourite upcoming game, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, because last time we talked about the leaks, and then very soon after there was an announcement that, hey, there's going to be a direct happening, and so everyone was scrambling. They were like, shit, is the leak's going to be proven real, and Nintendo getting out now because of the leaks? Is this why this direct is happening? And it turns out, no, all those leaks were bullshit, and it was completely made up, and yeah, Nintendo did something completely different, which a lot of insiders were actually talking about the fact that there were only 2 more characters, and a lot of people said, yeah, it's going to be the 2 that were shown. So that was pretty much what happened, and yeah, that's what we got. So we're going to talk about all the different things that happened in this Smash Brothers Direct. But I think, first of all, we're going to give our surface impressions about how we feel about it. I feel like we are on the more negative side than a lot of people in terms of how this Direct was, I don't know, overall just put out there, and its pacing and things like that, and the content of it. So what's your gut feeling, Bali?
So I had, as it was at 2:00 in the day UK time, and I decided at work that I was going to have a late lunch, so over lunch I'd be able to watch it. Went to KFC, I sat down with my mighty bucket and ready to go, and 40 minutes in, well, by the end of the Direct, I was a bit kind of that just didn't sit right with me, especially at the time. But since then, looking back, there's a lot of good stuff in there that we can definitely go over. And while there are some major disappointments that we'll get to, I think overall it's fine. It's good. I'm excited for this game, but that Direct could have been so much more.
Do you think your impressions were made more negative by the fact that the leak was untrue?
Really hard to answer that, actually, to try and sort of pretend that I wouldn't have known about it.
Because it naturally raises expectations for the number of characters that we have remaining. Right. Even though Nintendo had said and made it pretty clear, Sakurai was like, look, there's not going to be that many more characters.
Yeah. So I would definitely say that the leaks maybe played into that disappointment a bit, for sure.
Yeah. It's definitely a factor. I wouldn't say it was a large factor, because there are a lot of things about the core experience of this game that were disappointing enough for me to just be annoyed about it. Even if those rumored characters were true, like even if we got all those characters and the base game had still been what they showed, I would still be pretty disappointed just because of what the single player modes are and the way that they kind of put them out there. So let's kick things off then with some of the new characters. So we had the two right at the beginning, and this was in the moment where everyone wasn't sure whether the leak was real or not, because Ken was the first revealed character, who is obviously an Echo Fighter of Ryu from Street Fighter, and he has some pretty, not major differences, but I would say he's more of a different Echo than a lot of the ones we've seen so far. His fighting style is a little bit different. He is faster than Ryu, and obviously his ultimate, or what the hell, smash balls? What the fuck do you call those? Final smashes?
Final smash.
There you go. Are both different as well. So there, I think that he looks pretty cool. Again, I feel like I always gravitate towards Echo characters for some reason. Like, I prefer Lucina to Marth. I like playing Dr. Mario as opposed to normal Mario. Like, even though Dr. Mario, for whatever fucking reason, isn't an Echo character. The thing that really annoys me with Smash Brothers generally is like, hey, you're going to make Link and Young Link and not make them Echo characters, but I don't know, fucking Pit and Dark Pit are. I don't really understand how different you have to be classified as a new character versus an Echo. And it seems like it's just kind of a bullshit thing that Sakurai has just decided on, and it doesn't actually have any consistency whatsoever. But that said, Ken looking pretty cool, and I would probably play him over Ryu, just because he's new, I guess, and different.
Yeah, he looks fine. Like, I think he was, if anyone had to bet their house on the next character reveal, I think most people would probably go for Ken.
Yeah, it was that or Shadow, I would say, like, and even like maybe Miss Pac-Man, because there were some obvious third-party characters who could clearly just slot in an Echo there and be like, yeah, that's the thing, that's what we're doing. So there you go. That's him. And, you know, neither of us are big Street Fighter fans, so it's not something I was going pretty crazy about. But, you know, this is interesting because you never actually owned the DLC for Smash 4, Bally, so you never actually really played as Ryu.
No, I didn't. So.
Both of them will be new to you, basically.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah.
I'm excited to give all the DLC characters a go, including guys like Cloud, who you always kick my ass with. So I need to get on top of that guy.
Love Cloud, he's so good. So then they revealed during the same trailer, and it was a good matchup, I would say. This is, you know, based in a boxing ring. We had Little Mac fighting Ken, and then all of a sudden in comes the next fighter, who is the first kind of wrestling style character that we've had in the Smash Brothers game. It is the Pokemon Incineroar from Sun and Moon, who is, you know, the Pokemon representative positive. And I think that was one of the things that people were saying about the leak is, hey, there's no Pokemon in this leak, and there's always a new Pokemon in a Smash Brothers game. And that's what Nintendo want to do. Obviously, Pokemon's one of the biggest franchises in the world. Like, it's stupidly enormous, so why wouldn't you put one in there? And they decided on Incineroar, which I think a lot of people... I don't know how they feel about him as a Pokemon, how significant he is in representing Sun and Moon, but I would say from watching what they had shown of his character and how he plays, he's pretty damn interesting. And I think he's pretty unique and works well as a Smash Brothers character. So I think, once again, Sakurai has done a good job of like cherry-picking a Pokemon that works well in this style of game, like he did with Greninja last time.
Yeah, and like, even though I know that... what's it called? Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu. It's not a new generation of Pokemon, right? But it's still maybe a tad surprising that they'd go back to the last gen rather than focus on some sort of Pokemon that will feature heavily in the upcoming games coming out at a very similar time to Smash Brothers.
Yeah, well, what I'd say is like the design doc for this game, as people always talk about, is made way before, and I think it's why things like Springman from ARMS didn't get in, and because it was a bit too late by the time that they had already decided on what all the characters were going to be for this game. So Incineroar makes a good degree of sense, and I like a lot of his moves, like the one where he just like springs up at the edge of a wrestling ring and like bounces it back off, and you can, depending on the timing
at which you kind of do a wrestling move on them.
Yeah, exactly. So that was really neat, and he grabs people and throws them over his back and like bends backwards, and then he has a very dangerous move that I can see myself KOing myself all the fucking time with, which is where he like dives off the side. Yeah. I'm definitely going to die a bunch of times doing that, trying to kill you. So that'll be fun. But he looks pretty great. And not really a character that I have any investment in whatsoever, with Sun and Moon being the first Pokemon generation that I've ever not played the single player of and just have sat out. And, after I got very burned out on Pokemon, I'm just not really that interested in playing that game. And Bala, you still have it to play. Who did you choose as your starter? Did you choose Litten?
No, I picked the grass Rowlet.
Rowlet, yes.
He's the cute little grass owl. But
yeah,
I'm only like 4 hours in, so when I go back to that, I'll probably restart the game.
Yeah, exactly. Choose Litten this time.
Might even pick Litten.
You'll get that affinity for Incineroar, maybe, which would be cool. But yeah, it was interesting because Decidueye, which is the final evolution of Rowlet, is in Pokken Tournament, and I think that character in particular was thought of as a lot of people's favorite starter from that generation, but I guess Incineroar is the one that we're going with. So will they ever do anything with Primarina, who is the weird seal one? No, because no one likes Poplio, even though Poplio is fine and people should stop hating on Poplio. But yeah, that's the way it is. So those are our two kind of final characters, and after that Sakurai's like, yeah, that's it, those are all the characters in the game. And that was kind of deflating to some degree, because I don't think that for us in particular, they weren't very exciting choices. Because, one's just an echo of a character from a series that I really have zero investment in, and the other one is like yet another Pokemon. So, hey, hello, look at our marketing, please buy Pokemon kind of thing. So yeah, they didn't feel like, hey, this is the final Smash Brothers Direct, we have some really exciting final characters. They feel like box-ticking characters.
Yeah, it's like how you gotta bring the deep dive characters into your last Direct, and these two just don't feel like that in the slightest.
No. But hey, that brings the roster to what it was 74. And then, we get another character later that brings us 75, and obviously there's the DLC, so it looks like this game is going to round out at 80 characters even, which, quite frankly, is absurd and ridiculous, and honestly, what we have already is already more than enough, I think the fact that we got Ridley, the Inklings, King K. Rool, and obviously the Belmonts.
We've gotten greedy. We've gotten so greedy.
Yeah, those are really amazing characters, and all of them are ones that I'm super excited about and really want to play. So, honestly, we shouldn't be that mad about the fact that, we only got Ken and Incineroar as our finals. I just think Nintendo Sakurai needs to do a better job of managing which announcements come when, potentially. Because, as we were talking about before, had they finished with holy shit Simon Belmont and holy shit King K. Rool, that would have been
and Ridley maybe, but that was a good one for E3, I guess.
Yeah, Ridley, no, you have to have the big thing for E3, so Ridley made a lot of sense there. But I was very I don't know. I think that they could have planned it a little better in terms of the announcements. I didn't mention Isabel, but she's not really a character that I'm that interested in playing.
Yeah.
But she'll be. I'm sure she'll be fine. She'll be fine. So I don't know. What's the next thing you want to talk about? Should we go into the spirit shit? Because
might as well. It was a big focus, I guess, of this new realm of Smash Brothers we're going into. That's just spirits. The blurry writing was translated correctly.
Yes.
So
what is spirits, Bally? What the fuck does this mean? Please explain.
The characters die and they have spirits, but it's all the characters. They all have spirits. It's not just the playable characters. There's spirits from across the Nintendo universe.
Some of the most obscure fucking references possible. Game Explained did a really good video on the top 10 like most obscure characters in the spirits mode, and my god, they have some deep cuts in there, which I appreciate a lot. But also, like, who the hell is going to know most of these characters?
And then you attach these characters to your fighters, and they level up, and they do stuff. And
they give you like bonuses, or they change your state, things like that. Like you can turn metal, or you can go fast. It's almost like the modifiers to some degree in like when you do custom Smash games that like I used to do with Ali T, where it was like, let's do a metal fast bunny ears curry match, and it's just fucking manic nonsense. Which we've not done as much because we got more into let's be super serious and fight each other with nothing turned on. But I like that type of experience. I think that the way that it has been handled is disappointing on a many number of levels. I think overall this feels like this mishmash of all the worst things about Smash Brothers, like all the worst ideas that Sakurai has had over the years, from Smash Run collecting up power-ups to the sticker system in Brawl to, I don't know, like a lot of these type of specific things that are the single player focus, to even Subspace Emissary to some degree, right? And all it is you attach these things and then you fight these different matches, but some of all the matches are based on these characters, but they're not actually the characters you're fighting because they can't put all those characters in the game. So you're like, if you want to fight Guts Man, then you're going to fight a really giant Mega Man with the correct outfit that is the same color as Guts Man, and all he does is use throw on you, which as an event match fan sounds pretty cool, right? Because I like event matches, and I think that that's some of the most fun thing that you can find in a Smash Brothers game. And we had a great time when we played it when I was over in Brussels, and we were doing the event match where Fox and Falco have to keep all these Game & Watches from falling and hitting the ground.
Right, yeah.
And I wonder if they will do more stuff like that in the Spirits mode, because it looks like event match doesn't really exist anymore. And if that's what the saving grace could be, because at the moment that's all it seems like to me is the event matches, but with stickers and a bunch of bollocks, stats added in.
Right. And that's why it was a bit weird that this was such a big focus of this Direct, is that, as you said, it is event matches with stickers, and maybe it is a bit deeper than that. Fine, fair enough. But
yeah, but like, what does that deepness achieve, right? What do those stats even fucking mean?
We don't want Smash Brothers to be like RPG complicated add-on power-ups and level them up and trade them and move them and collect them, and
because like the fun of Smash Brothers is using those characters as how they are and how they have been balanced and how they have been created for the game at its natural state. And as soon as you start to throw on, now you're walking like 5% faster, and now you are doing 30% more damage and things like that, just it doesn't really work for me.
It's like the custom moves in Smash 4. It was just like, I don't want the idea.
I don't know. I like the idea of the custom moves in Smash 4 just because they showed some variety, but getting them was a pain in the ass. Like, I didn't enjoy acquiring them.
Yeah, and then the second, not that I partake in many Smash Brothers tournaments, but the idea that you can't then use those custom moves in tournaments and stuff like that, it just felt a bit. Didn't feel like Smash Brothers. I like my Smash Brothers Captain Vanilla over here, but I like it vanilla. I like it, pure. And Spirits just feels like the opposite of vanilla. It's just so overwhelming.
It's just, like, you remember playing a bit of Smash Run on 3DS, right? And all you would do is run through this level and beat up enemies and collect just a bunch of things that upped a percentage, and then at the end it would be like, okay, now have a smash match with those percentages.
It's weird.
And it didn't feel very different, or it didn't make a lot of sense, and it was not very enjoyable. And I wonder if like building up a character and having them all these spirits attached is going to be that same thing, because it feels like it maybe messes with the idea of the event match in the first place, because the event match is supposed to be a thing that is very set in stone. Here are the conditions, here are what you have to do particular. Whereas if you throw customization into that, then it kind of defeats the point of what the match was supposed to be, like, because it's supposed to have certain restrictions on it.
It's not standalone in the same way that an event match would be. It's all these other hoops to jump through.
Exactly. And so you could make something that's a really interesting event match super boring if you have certain spirits that make it, way too easy for you, for example. Or it could be balanced so difficultly because you don't have the right spirits for it. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of pitfalls here, and it seems like there's an opportunity for it to turn out really poorly, and I can't see a lot of the benefits. So that's why I feel pretty down on it overall. And the idea that it is basically core to the World of Light mode, which is the thing they show at the end with like the big CG cutscene, and you have this board that you go across. I'm pretty they didn't really make it very clear, but I'm pretty sure they're the same thing, right? The in spirits mode, that is what the thing is the adventure mode, or are they separate? Like, I'm not really sure, because when they were going through that trailer, it looked like the same screens were popping up for fighting those types of enemies.
It looks
similar, like that board
but
that you're going on is like doing those specific spirit games.
It really wasn't clear, and it's partly because there was so much information just thrown at us that was linked to spirits and then the World of Light mode, that my brain was in overload at that point as to what on earth was going on and what it all meant. And I was just like, ugh, this doesn't feel like Smash Brothers. This just feels like this completely different mode. And yeah, we can maybe get onto the World of Light, but that map did look interesting and well put together and thematic. And it is interesting to see if there will be some sort of story that comes out of that whole, kind of, what am I trying to say? Avengers.
Right, yes.
Thanos moment, and whether there will be cutscenes and stuff like that. And if that's what it could be, then it could be interesting, but that's
right.
A big
I mean, the only reason to play Subspace Emissary was for the cutscene, so if that's a reward for going through what is looking like pretty subpar single player stuff, then fine. But I don't think, like, Sakurai literally says in the video, this is nothing like Subspace Emissary, so he's already making that expectation. But I don't know what he means by that. Like, does he mean in terms of the gameplay, or does he mean in terms of the crazy like cutscene where you're mashing all the Nintendo stuff together? I have no idea, and I'll be very interested to see if he has gone back on that idea, because the whole reason there wasn't a crazy single-player mode in Smash for Wii U and 3DS was because Sakurai said, oh, I don't want people uploading it to YouTube and then just watching it on YouTube, which is the most Nintendo stance possible, their attitude towards the internet is like, for fuck's sake, you're not going to be able to stop it, Sakurai. Like, it's just deal with it. And I don't know if he's got over that yet or not, but we got a cool ass cutscene with a great song, which was awesome. And I think, we're both in agreement that this is a really great main theme, and now it's only being enhanced by the fact that we have like very cheesy lyrics to go along with it.
At the time, it was weird, but I was kind of feeling low from the rest of the directing. It was like this weird Nintendo moment that was like, oh, that's nice. That's kind of cool.
Right? Like, Kirby is the only survivor. Like, obviously, Sakurai is going to make Kirby the only fucking survivor of this apocalypse, his dear child. And then, like, it just sets up this moment of, like, Kirby looking across this vast expanse of, like, rainbows and, like, landscapes and mountains and rivers. And then it just, like, kicks in with this vocal, and you're like, oh, shit. So that was good. I think that was definitely a good closer.
It was nice.
And it makes me more excited for the potential of what the hell World of Light actually is. But we're going to have to wait and see to see what it actually is.
We shall see.
Yeah. And I do think that it's probably going to end up being that you unlock characters through that, because it makes sense with them having died. So you're obviously going to find matches where it's like, oh, here is the Mario that is possessed with the red eyes that you see in the trailer, and by defeating him, you unlock him.
I'm sure it might be like multiple ways to unlock characters again, because I think
probably.
in every game so far you've been able to unlock them purely through Brawl or Melees or whatever, or Smashes.
And Sakurai did say that they had streamlined the conditions for unlocking fighters, so...
Right, and they got the cool sort of starts with the original 8 from N64 and gradually builds in with their numbers, I guess, now that they're all numbered.
Right, exactly. So yeah, and that was always one of the best parts when we were kids playing Melee, was knowing how to unlock characters. And it actually took us, like, not months, but at least a couple of months to get everyone.
Took us a long time with Melee, yeah.
I remember leaving my GameCube on overnight to get Mewtwo. You know, that's what we had to do. It was like there were so many silly things, and obviously there's the famous story of you unlocking Luigi and running around the house like a madman, screaming about it. And we had the magazine that basically had all the conditions for like unlocking characters, and we're like, oh shit, this is really hard. How are we going to unlock this character? And it was very, very cool and just unique, but it also was quite difficult to get those characters. So I think they found a better balance now in terms of, you know, getting the characters and not making it like, I'm not going to have to leave my Switch on overnight, or am I? You know, I don't know.
Please, it'd be like melted in the morning, like
exactly.
The way that they warp. I hope not.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Jesus. So I think the last thing to say about Spirits is, it's basically the thing that kicked me in the nuts first of all was Sakurai being like, we've made the decision to not put trophies into this game, and I was like, what the actual fuck?
The reason that he gave as well was like, it was too much effort or something. It's like,
which I understand, because like you look at those trophies and there is a lot of care put into them, like especially like the big Final Smash ones that I love, and that was the reason I played through All-Star mode, was to get the awesome looking Final Smash trophies. They're just such a spectacle, and I also just love the categorization of like being split into series, the fact you can organize them and go through them and read about them. There's all these little tidbits of information. You can like spin them around and like zoom in and look at, like, I remember in Melee especially that there was like a lot of cities that you could zoom into and go really close because there's a lot of detail. Trophies were the reward of Smash Brothers. They were my progression through the game, and it was the thing that motivated me to play a lot of the modes. Now what we have is this fucking mix between stickers and, I don't know, I guess trophies, but really all it is JPEGs of things from the game, and it's not even original artwork. It's just pulled straight from the games themselves and like pre-existing assets. So there's nothing special or exciting about getting a Spirit, because all it really is a JPEG and a stat boost, and that does nothing for me. It does literally nothing.
I will welcome them a little bit more if there's a really nice way of viewing them like they were trophies, but still, it's not the same as trophies. You can't do it
in that same way. It's not the same. Like the cabinet that they had in Smash 4 was amazing.
So good.
So that's a real bummer. And I was talking to you about this as well, but like, what is my motivation to play through classic mode? Why do I even want to do that anymore? Because the little video that plays at the end certainly isn't, and going for a high score certainly isn't. Like, what is my reward for playing classic mode? Is there a reward? Because that, you know, I did that on 3DS. I played through classic mode with every character, and I'm still in the process of doing it on Wii U. Like, I love coming back to that stuff because there is that thing that you get at the end that is like, I have done this and I want to complete my collection, so you keep going through it. And All-Star is the same way. And even in this game, All-Star seems to have been reduced down to just a part of multi-man Melee, where it's like alongside 100-man Melee is All-Star mode, where you just basically are on the same screen and you kill enemies as they spawn on the screen. It is a major disappointment, because that original idea of All-Star wasn't groundbreaking or anything, but, you know, it at least took you to different locations, and you at least had the opportunity to get something at the end of it, which you don't anymore. At least it seems that way. So
yeah,
I don't know. It really kicks me in the nuts, because I've been so excited for Smash Ultimate, and to hear this, the fact that they don't have trophies, really kills a lot of my desire to even play through a lot of my favorite modes in that game over and over again.
And even the name, like, Ultimate, the whole idea is that it'll have everything, and that's the theme that, like, Sakurai's gone with for the characters. Like, there will be every single character of the previous games plus all these other characters. It's always this addition, adding more and more and more to the game. And then for the ultimate version of Smash to not even have trophies, which have been such a big part of Smash Brothers right up until now, feels so empty and like the opposite of what you would want the ultimate Smash Brothers game to include.
Like, what the fuck do you spend your coins on? Do you even get coins? You know, there are all these questions.
Spend them on spirits.
No, but I mean, they did show the shop, right? And the shop was like, hey, you can buy music and spirits. And I'm like, this used to be where you could buy trophies. This used to be what the entire point of this shop was to buy trophies. And now, I guess it's better for music because there were a lot of pain in the ass tracks that you had to like just randomly drop and pick up a CD in order to get it, which was a stupid way of unlocking music in the game, to be quite frank. So it makes a difference that you're able to do that. And obviously Sakurai was boasting about the obscene amount of music tracks in this game. So I'm sure majority of my time will be spending stuff on getting those, but I don't care about the spirits. Like, it's cool that they're referencing, like, the dude from fucking Disaster Day of Crisis, but, like, what does
you could have
do?
A trophy of that dude. You don't need a spirit.
Yeah, what... That's all there is. It's just like, here's the image of him, and I don't know, he gives you 20% extra attack power? Like, what the fuck? That's nothing. It's so nothing. Yeah, and that's why it's a big bummer. But anyway, there are people who I'm sure are going to be more excited for this mode than we are, and I hope that there is something that comes out of it that is interesting. But right now, I don't have much reason to be excited for it. So, and it's one of those things, like, Smash Brothers single player hasn't really hit the nail on the head since Melee, because that game had an amazing classic mode, an amazing like adventure mode, a really great collection of smash the target and home run, all of those different things that you could do. And they've pared it down to where those things don't even... Like, event matches was amazing. Like, you look at Melee single-player content, and it is so, so good on every aspect. And then Brawl had Subspace, and Wii U, they had the stupid fucking board game mode that is literally the worst thing to ever exist in a Smash Bros. Game.
Damn awful. I mean, I think we played it once, and I was... Yeah. The second we were in it, I was like, can we stop?
After about 5 minutes, we were, like, ready to stop. It was very, very bad. So yeah, it just doesn't feel like since then there has been a reason for us to expect the single player to be very good, and it just hasn't. At least in terms of like the major modes that they focus on. So yeah, no home run in this. No smash the targets.
I love home run. I love like co-op home run where we're both Ganondorf just trying to get those extra hits in, and like the leg kick and the punch and now pick up the bat. No, it's not pick up the bat. You use the Warlock punch and just that timing and
the reverse Warlock punch. It's a good time.
I miss that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we still have the Wii U and 3DS version, Val. You know, it's not going anywhere. It still exists, we do. So there you go. Okay, well then I guess we can talk about maybe the DLC characters and the surprise character that they had that showed up. So at the end of all this spirit shit, and we're all bored to tears, and it's taken forever, and you know, like we need something to bring us out of it, and they talk about the new character to Smash Brothers. There's an early purchase bonus if you get the game. It's everyone's favorite, most requested character. It's the Piranha Plant. Yes, just a Piranha Plant from the Super Mario Brothers series, a random fucking enemy from a Mario game, who sure is iconic, but is just a random enemy. And this is the out of left field pick.
Yeah. Like looking back, I'm now finding it like, this is funny and quirky.
He actually does look like a fun character to play, I will be honest.
And this is fun. But at the time, after going through all of that spirit stuff, trophies being ripped away from me, I know the leak's not true. I was like, Nintendo, I'm in no mood to laugh about this damn Piranha Plant right now. Yeah. Just get out of my face. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I couldn't handle it. I was like, oh god.
It was like the opposite of the cherry on top. It was like it was just not what you wanted. At the
everything
end,
falls out the bottom kind of feeling. Yeah.
So Piranha Plant's going to be around probably February of next year, and so won't launch with the game, but will come if you pre-buy it.
The cheek that like you can get it. I think. Well, so will you only get it if you pre-purchase, or will you get it earlier if you pre-purchase?
I think it's basically like if
The
you
game.
get it physical, then you have to register for the gold points before end of January. If you get it digital, I think you do have to just preload, basically.
Oh, right, yeah. It was just they had a cheek that this was some sort of sale linked to the sales thing. I was like, oh,
yeah,
no.
Although Sakurai very, very open when it comes to DLC and what they are doing with it, because it feels like Nintendo generally are a lot less scummy about that type of thing.
Yeah.
Because Sakurai's like, guys, this DLC, I'm not going to tell you what's in it because we want to keep the surprise, but like, only buy it if you really believe that you want it. Like, only get it if you want it, which is not good marketing or sales, but it is appreciated in a world where DLC and microtransactions are the scum and villainy of a lot of people's minds in the gaming space. So
it seemed like a decent price. I can't remember. Was it like $24 and you get all 5 characters or something? And you get a
it's like
stage
$25
and music for every single one. It's not awful.
Right, so it's basically packages of $5.99, so you get like character, stage, music, and so if you got all of them together, it would basically save you $5 because, you know, it would be like a bundle essentially.
Sure.
So, and you know, it's going to be obviously priced differently here, but it's not super expensive. I think it's much better priced overall than what they did for Smash Wii U, which was such weird pricing, and then they charged for these weird packs with the Mii costumes in them, and like I bought one Mii costume which was Dunban, and I think I spent like £1.60 on it, and I'm like, what? This is such a weird like amount of money.
You needed that outfit though.
I did, yeah, it was fun. I still have it, but like. There's a lot of weird shit, and I think all the Mii costumes are probably built into the game this time, not charging for that nonsense.
What if Dunban is one of the DLC characters?
Fuck. Oh, Bally, no, don't do this to me. Shit. Oh, God, I didn't even think about it.
All would be remedied.
Fuck. Play as fucking badass one-armed Dunban, Jesus.
And they might have like that naked Dunban build as one of the outfits or something.
Exactly.
Like
no, naked Shulk, naked Dunban. They go together. They have a tag. They should have an event match with Dunban and Shulk. That would be really good. And you have to fight just a giant fucking massive sized Ricky who's just clomping all over the place. Yeah, that would be hilarious, but no, Nintendo's not going to make that one of their 5 DLC characters. So this is the thing, is like, since this Direct happened, it has been clarified by Sakurai that Nintendo are basically the people who have chosen what the last 5 DLC characters are. So everyone's dreams and hopes of it being some crazy shit, I think, should probably go out the window, considering that the decision is being made by them, and it's no ballot. They're not going to be doing any Bayonetta nonsense with like people choosing their favorite characters. And it seems like Sakurai has kind of gone to the fan requests as much as he could, with the Belmont and King K. Rool and Ridley obviously being the major one. So my cynical brain tells me that Nintendo are just going to want to promote all their fucking video games. They're like, here's another Fire Emblem character from Three Houses because it's coming out. Also, let's time this next one to come out for the next Pokemon game at the end of the year. And
we know that there's Animal Crossing and Luigi's Mansion 3. Maybe
right? Yeah, exactly. One of the characters could be Professor Egad, which actually would be awesome. I think that would be pretty
there's going to
amazing.
be roughly 5, Nintendo first-party big games next year. It would not surprise me in the least if every single one is tied to like a character, but we'll see.
Yeah, potentially. And these characters are basically promised to come out around the time of 2020 before then. So we have 5 characters over the next year or so, which is cool. That's great that, we have the potential for Nintendo Directs to end with Smash Brothers reveals still. I love that hype cycle. I love the great CG trailers that they make. Yeah. They're always such fun to watch.
Never want that to end. Just those trailers. Oh, so good.
Yeah. And I do wonder, like, obviously Sakurai made a joke about him never getting a break, which, I don't know, it feels weird because in the current conditions of, like, talking about 100-hour work weeks with Red Dead Redemption 2, like, people are laughing at it, but also it's like, Jesus Christ, this man has worked his ass off. But is this the end of Smash Brothers DLC? Is it just going to be this, or is there going to be more that comes after it? And especially on the heels of Furukawa saying recently that Nintendo are definitely leaning more into DLC plans and supporting their games after they've come out, and having major DLC for all of the stuff they're doing. I don't know. It seems like they would have done it already with a lot of their games. Like, where's the Mario Odyssey DLC still? Like, I'm so shocked that we haven't had any of it. And whether it's too late on that, or whether they're going to do a second
there's a
game.
reason, with like a new game, of course, or something.
Yeah.
Is this actually the ultimate? Is this the end of Smash? Like, will there be DLC after the 80th fighter? Could they just keep going with re-releases where it's like re-release of Smash Ultimate with these 5 new characters and then like a new single player mode, or is that just ridiculous?
I mean, I think once all the DLC is out, they could do a thing which is like the ultimate version of Smash Brothers Ultimate, which is oh man.
Are they going to look back and say, I wish we hadn't called it Smash Ultimate?
No, I know, exactly.
Like, that was a stupid
we
thing
screwed
to call
ourselves
it.
over.
Yeah, we're done.
But yeah. So I don't know what is there anything else to discuss about this? There's new amiibos, some cool assist trophies, but which obviously were annoying for some people because they deconfirmed characters. So Shadow died and Isaac from Golden Sun. Guile from Street Fighter was a fun one.
That was a cool one.
Springman obviously was one that another character who's basically deconfirmed.
Dr. Wily's looking nice.
Yeah, Dr. Wily was great. I enjoyed that a lot. So there's some really good ones in the game. I think they have a great selection.
There was too much amiibos, and there was too much Mii fighters with like new costumes and stuff.
Yeah, and they talked about the online as well. And it was like Sakurai was like, "Hey, we have this phone app. You should use it, I guess. Also, we're going to make something where you can upload videos to this app." And it's like, Sakurai, have you heard of YouTube? Clearly not, because he has a very bad relationship with YouTube and people uploading his clips. So, you know, I don't know who even cares about that shit. I really wonder how many people actually use that smartphone app. Of all Switch players, what is the percentage of people who actually use it for communication?
I'm interested to know how many people have even picked up like Nintendo Switch Online before Smash has even come out. Were there people who were consistently playing games like Splatoon and I don't know, maybe
obviously
Rocket
like
League,
big communities like that are going to be
they've been
using
like
it.
right, yep, picked it up, or has there been?
But like the
people
biggest game multiplayer wise, Fortnite is free. And you don't have to have a Nintendo subscription to play that online. Things like Paladins is free to play. You don't have to have a subscription for that. So
I'd be interested to know what their communities are like on Switch versus, say, Splatoon 2, and like how big. Well, has maybe Fortnite has overtaken Splatoon 2 since the introduction of paid online. I don't know, but
yeah, maybe. I think that it probably would do though, wouldn't it? Because it's free. So literally anyone can download it and do whatever they want with it. So, but yeah, I don't know. They talked about a bunch of bullshit in menus, and it wasn't super interesting.
All these languages, it's like, right, fine,
great. It's like cool, but that's not really like. As I said, I think the pacing was all off, and it didn't really come together as a good direct. But there's some good stuff in there, and obviously, I'm still excited to play this fucking game. It's a new Smash Brothers, for God's sake. Of course, I want to play it, but it doesn't seem as ultimate as I would have liked it to be, you know? Like, I really wish that they had better ideas for their single-player stuff and that it was more in line with what they have done in the past.
And World of Light could be great. That definitely, it could be. Like, we don't know, but it might. And as we said, not convinced at all by Spirits, and the last additions to the roster aren't great, but the space for these 5 DLC characters could not change everything, but really make a big difference. We'll see.
Yeah, we can be hopeful about it, and there could be some great picks. As you said with Animal Crossing, like we could have Tom Nook in the game, which we've had Isabelle, but Nook would be a fun, probably more iconic character, but not as popular in Japan, I guess, like Isabelle. The only reason she's in the game is because Japan just fucking loves Isabelle. So, yeah, it may be very safe. It may be from the franchises that we think of as the large ones, and we're just going to fill out the roster with those for a few more characters. But, you know, they could throw an Advance Wars characters in there, Bally. They could throw you a bone. Who knows? If it's Nintendo choosing, then maybe they decide to go deeper into their...
I mean, if they tied that to some new Advance Wars announcement in the same way they did Isabelle with Animal Crossing, that would just... That'd be quite a nice internet surprise. Send the internet on fire. They love doing that.
Absolutely. So yeah, overall, not a great direct, but we're still excited for the game, and that there is an opportunity for it to turn out better than we think it will. So good to be optimistic about it, I guess. But we just have to wait and see, and it's just basically less than a month now, so we're coming up on it pretty soon. And yeah, I want to play this game. I want to have Smash Brothers in my life again and have an easy access to a system where I can just play it.
Nice.
Because I like 3DS, but the Wii U version is better. And like my Wii U is hooked up, but I have to switch things around. It's like it's not the easiest system to play on versus the Switch. No. So
Switch is everything.
Convenient. Yeah. Okay, well, that pretty much closes out for the show. Thanks, everyone, for listening. You can, of course, find us in loads of places over the internet. We're on Twitter, of course. You can catch our TNL account, which is at TNL Podcast. That's where you get access to our Discord, our YouTube, lots of links to loads of different places that you can peruse. And you can find me on Twitter. I'm at LordNBZ. Bally, where are you?
I am at Ballyman91. That's BALLYMN 91. Give me a follow. I've not been tweeting too much, just been busy with things, but I'll try and step that up.
Cool. So you can find us there. You can obviously head on over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ThisNintendoLife, where we put up the show
complete
on Fridays
with timestamps.
It comes up. Yep, with timestamps as well, which is beneficial for a lot of people. Obviously, and we also put the music tracks in there, the names of them, so in case you miss them at the end of the episode, then you can go and look them up in case you're still wondering, or in the cases where I forget to put them on the end of the episode, like I think I did last time, you can go and see in that description what they are, so that's pretty helpful too. Of course, though, we have to thank our Patreon backers for supporting the show. Who is it that we have to thank, Bally?
Thank you to our two $10 tier patrons. They are, of course, my girlfriend Caroline and Atari Alex. Thank you for your support. And also, thank you to our TNL sponsor tier, $50 tier patron, who, of course, is Daniel V. Thank you so much for your support as well. And it's an important time for our Patreon, because it's now been a year of Patreon. We've done what we said. We've done an episode a month, and then so next week we've got I guess it'll be our 6th episode of TNL Takes, and we're going to focus on a country close to both of our hearts, which of course is Scotland.
Yes.
So we're going to talk everything ins and outs of Scotland, and
absolutely,
that'll be a nice way to round up a year of Patreon.
Yeah, there you go. And thanks to everyone who supported us. It's been very, very cool, and it keeps going from strength to strength. So thanks everyone for supporting us on Patreon and helping the show keep doing what it's doing. You can obviously find us on iTunes. We're on Stitcher. We are in all the places that you have podcasting apps. Just search for This Nintendo Life, and you can subscribe to us, which I'd recommend doing, so the episodes download straight to your device of choice, and you don't have to go searching for it all the time. It's very, very helpful and very convenient. And if you could leave us some reviews as well, that'd be fantastic. Go onto iTunes and review us. That is the best way to get the word out and let other people know that we exist and that we're a podcast, and that we talk about Nintendo and all those fun things. So that will be a good way for you to help. So you can go and do that. And I think that is pretty much it. Is there anything else to think about other than Smash Brothers for the future, Bally? I don't know.
If this was a Smash Direct, now is when we would introduce that you can play as Piranha Plant. So maybe we need our own TNL equivalent that we'd slide in right at the end.
Look, Bally, we've already established that Box Boy should be in Smash Brothers.
Box Boy should be.
Must be. That would make my fucking year if one of the DLC characters was Box Boy. And here's the thing though, Bally, Sakurai hails from HAL Laboratories.
That is a good shout.
Known for their simplistic characters, one of which is Kirby, who is the survivor of the apocalypse, who is just like Kirby but is a box instead of a circle. Fucking Box Boy. Who has had a trilogy that should be released on Switch that they could coincide an announcement with. Fucking Box Boy. That's all I'm saying.
That'd be a
get
great
your conspiracy
game to
hats on.
Stick that on Switch. Stick that trilogy on.
Yeah, and make a new one. God damn it! And give me more Box Boy. I fucking love that series. So yeah, that's our final statement of the show. We need some Box Boy and Smash, and we wanted to see it happen. So. That's going to be us. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back in a couple more weeks' time with some more Nintendo talking about video games and all the fun things and things we like. And getting up on this Game of the Year very soon, so that's going to be exciting too. Thanks everyone. We will be back very, very soon. Until then, bye-bye. The musical interludes used on today's episode were The Kingdom of Torna and Lasaria, both from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torna, the Golden Country. Copyright Nintendo 2018.